Hello everyone, welcome to the Redesigning School Counseling webinar for Renewal schools. These are schools that are renewing their RSC status and their Indiana Gold Star School Counseling status. The focus of today's webinar is root causes update. So we'll be specifically looking at the areas that are interfering with your school's ability to reach your school counseling program goals. And then also today we're going to talk about the new Lilly Counseling Initiative and how RSC can be used during the planning phase to design your implementation grant for your Lilly proposal. My name is Sue Reynolds and I am president of the American Student Achievement Institute. So here's the agenda. We'll talk about the Lilly Initiative. We're going to do that quick review that we do every time we talk so that you can see where today's process step fits into the big picture. And then this month we'll be looking at a pre-meeting email that will help your council members look at data to tease out your root causes. And then, of course, we'll also be looking at your submissions, and then we'll walk through the online system as well. Okay, so let's talk about that Lilly Endowment Counseling Initiative. This is so exciting. We've been talking with Lilly and knowing that this has been coming for quite a while, and we're very, very excited that Lilly has chosen to put the funding directly into the school districts and schools. And also that they're doing this as in a two-part initiative. So the first part is all about planning, which RSC is going to fit really nicely into. And then the second part is about implementing the activities in that plan. So I'd like to highlight and overview the initiative, Lilly's initiative, and then we'll talk specifically about how you'll use RSC to support your funding applications. Okay, so as I mentioned, looks like I'm hearing a little bit of background noise, so please make sure you've got that microphone muted. Your microphone icon should be gray and not green. So if it is green, just click it and that will mute. Otherwise, we'll just mute everybody on our end because I know that background noise can be frustrating. So, okay, can somebody make sure you're muted? Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and mute everybody then and type in questions if you have questions, and we'll go from there. Okay. Okay, so let's look at these grants. There's two grants. The first one is a planning grant, and then that will take place the second semester of this school year. And then the implementation grant will take place in the years after that. So, so let's look at the planning grant first. The very nice thing is that the planning grant is non-competitive. So this funding is available to every public school district in the state. I'm just super, super excited about that. So let's just walking through kind of the left-hand column. The purpose of that non-competitive grant is to help schools research model counseling programs, assess your own strengths and weaknesses, identify activities that you would like to implement, and then to prepare the grant proposal. So I think probably as you're listening to me outline those things, you're thinking, oh man, that's what we're doing in RSC. Absolutely. So we're really excited about this. So expenses that you may have in this phase that you would want to put into your planning grant is expenses that you might incur researching model programs. So that may be for site visits or whatever. And then also research expenses that you may have that are related to accessing your current program strengths and weaknesses, engaging stakeholders in the redesign process, and then also for technical assistance. The nice thing is that as a participant in RSC that is partially funded already by our organization and partially funded already by the Indiana Department of Education, your technical assistance for the process piece you'll have no expense for, where other schools that have not ever done anything like RSC or Gold Star You know, if they want to hire an outside person like us to support their work, they would have to pay for that. But because of our board's policy that we want as many as possible of our initiatives for school counselors to be no cost, as well as the department's support for these webinars. These services are coming to you already paid for, so that's not something that you would have to put into your planning grant. So your planning grant, the amounts is up to $30,000 to $50,000 per district. So that's a pretty good chunk of change, and you know, we think that you'll need to think carefully about how you're going to spend that funding in the second semester to enhance probably your activity exploration process with RSC, and we'll talk with you throughout second semester about more how to do that and give you some ideas. And then the other thing that you can use that funding for is technical assistance, and again, that's there already for you. So okay. Then the deadline, I'm sorry I forgot to type that in there, is May 19th, 2017. So it's at the end of this school year. And I'll talk a little bit more about that planning grant on the next couple of slides and really help you see how your RSC work is going to serve as your planning process. Okay, so then the implementation grants, you'll apply for those. The deadline is May 17th. So the implementation grant will say, okay, we've done this study and we've decided that here are our goals and here's our root causes and here's the activities we think we need to put in place and here's how much it's going to cost to put those activities in place. So that's actually a step we've always done. As a renewal school, you may remember that our last step is always preparing a budget and then figuring out how you're going to get the funding to support that budget. And so same thing, it's just now we're going to have a whole lot more funding to support those activities. So that is very cool. Keep in mind this is competitive though. Not every school is going to be awarded funding for their activities. But our hope is that your planning proposal, that the proposal that you develop during the planning phase is so strong that the RSC schools will be able to get those implementation grants. Yeah, so we're really happy with that. And again, as you're implementing, as you start thinking about the costs that might be associated with the activities that you implement, there may be materials that you need to purchase, supplies, maybe some travel if you're taking students on field trips, personnel costs, technical assistance. One of the things that we always like to cover is to caution schools to worry about those personnel costs. So many times we've watched schools where they have money for personnel, and then at the end of the grant that money goes away, the whole program dies. So we really encourage schools not to put a lot of money into personnel unless they have a way to sustain that after the grant period. So the implementation grants you can see are also large, you know, up to $100,000 per district depending on the size of your district. And then that grant period, you can see, is a multi-grant period that's going to last several years. So, and again, the deadline for the competitive implementation grant is May in 2017. Okay, so that's kind of the overview of the two phases of the funding. So there's a planning grant that's going to be the second semester of this year, and then the implementation grant that not all schools will get that's going to go on for several years after that. Okay, so I want to talk more now specifically about the planning phase and how you'll be able to use your RSC work to help with that planning phase. So in the planning phase, the things that Lilly is suggesting that you do is to research model counseling programs. And one thing that Lilly talks about big time is that in model counseling programs, there is a broad-based group of people that deliver the services. And as you know, that's something that we have advocated for years, and we're very excited about that because we're going to be able now to provide some additional technical support to help you do that. So Lilly is talking about researching model counseling programs. And one of the things that we wanted to point out is that RSC is a model program. A lot of you became involved in RSC because it's part of Indiana's Gold Star program. But I can tell you there are schools in 41 other states that have engaged with RSC, because they've done a lot of research and they know that RSC is a model program that's proven and that works. And just as a reminder, we have independent researchers that have shown that schools that are engaged with RSC end up having higher math scores on the math state test and higher language arts scores on the state's language arts test. So we know that RSC is a model program, and we have data that shows that it works. And again, that's something that that we explained and you went over with your council in your very first meeting with them. But I do want you to think about RSC as a model program. It is. I'm a little bit worried that because we're in your backyard and it's something that you get for free, that it's going to be hard to think, oh my gosh, this is a nationally recognized model program, and it is. And then in addition to your involvement in the RSC model program, we'll help you look at 3 different ways that you can build on your program. And specifically for the renewal schools that have already gone through RSC, as we started thinking about, okay, what would be your next steps, that, given that if you wanted to build your program, improve upon your program, we think that broadening the delivery of your services is probably the way to go, to reach more kids, to reach students more frequently, to introduce content and then reinforce and build upon content. We really would like to help you go down that road. So there's 3 initiatives. We'll help you if you'd like to during the second semester look at setting up a teacher advisor program, looking at setting up a community-based student guidance initiative, and then there's also a third one, a classroom-based guidance initiative where we align the guidance curriculum with academic curricula. Okay, so in terms of researching model programs, you've got that covered through RSC. Engaging stakeholders, you've got that covered big time with RSC. You already have an advisory council. Your advisory council is very broadly based. If you think your advisory council is a little weak, that would be a place then that this year you'd really want to engage and reconvene that advisory council. So, and again, through our process, that's something we just have you do. So, if that's a weak area for you, you'd really want to pay attention to that part of the process. Then in the next part, in assessing your strengths and weaknesses, again, we've never seen anything nationally that even comes close to the strength of RSC in helping you assess your strengths and weaknesses. You have the student survey that helps you understand what students' needs are, so that helps you understand where your program strengths and weaknesses are, because you can start to see where students are getting it and where they're not getting it. We have the counselor survey that helps you identify what opportunities you provide for students and where your strengths are in that area, where your weaknesses are in that area. And then we also do the counselor time use study that again helps you understand your strengths and weaknesses in terms of using your counselor's time. So again, when we get to the root cause analysis, which is what we're talking about today, you're going to have all kinds of data to back up the positions that you take in your implementation grant. So I think that's really cool. Identifying activities, when we get to that step, we have that database of school counseling activities that are all aligned with standards, and root causes and different delivery models or delivery modes. So, you've got that research piece within RSC. You may decide as you're, with that additional funding that as you find an initiative you think is cool, you want to just jump in the car and go visit that initiative. Or you want to invite people from that school to come do a presentation in your school. So, there's a lot of ways that we can build upon that now since we're going to have some funding for the planning process. And then Lilly also asks you to do a grant proposal. And this is what I'd like you to really think about. In the process this year, you're going to be really developing that grant proposal. If this were the outline for your grant proposal for the implementation grant, for the rationale part, you would just look at your student data, look at the baseline data, drop that into your proposal as this is why we need implementation funds, because here we are right now. And then the goals, you'll say, okay, here's where we are, but here's where we want to be, and you'll drop in your program goals and your priority goals. Then in your strengths and weaknesses, you'll go to your program data, and you'll say, right now our counselors, only spend 10% of their time, is only 10% of your time is spent in delivering services to students, and you want to drop in a teacher advisor program so that you can do that. And then in the budget, the activities you put in, and then your budget. We've always done an RSC budget. It's just this time you're going to have additional funds available, hopefully, and then you can just take all of that and submit it as your grant proposal. So, okay. Okay, so in terms of our technical support, here's what we're currently doing, and here's what we're going to add. We're currently doing an RSC workshop series for first-year schools, and then an RSC workshop series for renewal schools. So that's you guys. So we're going to tweak these workshops a little bit so that at the end of this, you'll have everything that you need to write that implementation phase funding proposal. So, you'll be able to put in the data, put in the goals, put in the root causes, put in the activities, put in the budget. It's all going to be ready to just drop into your proposal for funding. Okay, then a couple of new things that we're going to offer during this planning phase. Sometime very soon, in November, maybe beginning of December, but probably November, we'll be providing a webinar with more specifics about how this counseling initiative and RSC go together. It'll be a webinar that you're invited to participate in. It'll also be a webinar that people who have never heard of RSC are going to be invited to participate in. So we just want folks to understand that they can use RSC to go through this process. Then we're also in second semester going to offer a new initiative. Not sure what we're going to call it right now. In-house, we've just been using the title Reaching Them All. And in that initiative, it'll be like RSC, so it'll be a new cohort of RSC schools, but it's also going to merge into that. I'm kind of getting in my head of myself. I'm sorry. I'm talking about this last thing here. Let me back up. The new cohort, we're not sure the name, obviously. We're thinking right now it's going to be called Guiding All Kids. It will be RSC, and then this additional training that we're talking about, how to reach all kids. And then, so now let me back up. So actually, let me go. I'm sorry. I've got this out of sequence, and I'm afraid it's not going to make sense. So currently, you're participating in RSC for renewal schools. The next step would be to attend this webinar to really talk about how is this all going to align with the Lilly initiative. Then we'll offer for you in the planning phase, so during the second semester, a workshop, excuse me, a workshop that introduces how to broaden the delivery method. So we'll introduce setting up an advisor-advisee program, a community-based student guidance initiative, and guiding in the classroom, where we're merging academic content with guidance content. So we'll introduce this at a workshop, maybe webinar, we're still thinking about that. And then in the implementation phase, if there's any of these things that you really like, we'll take your school through a step-by-step implementation process where we, like an advisor-advisee curriculum, the first step would be to introduce it to your faculty. Second step would be to train your faculty on the limits of confidentiality, how to make referrals, the curriculum that they're going to be introducing, listening skills. We'll give you everything you need to help set up an advisor-advisory program in your school. And then same thing in the community-based. We'll talk about, how do you deliver the guidance curriculum through your Kiwanis Club and your mayor's office and your public library. How do you bring all those folks together to coordinate with what you're doing as a school counselor in the school, so that you introduce maybe a concept and then the Chamber of Commerce reinforces it. So that's another, webinar series that we'll provide. And then the last one is Guiding Through the Classroom, where we'll talk about academic content, and then how your teachers can use a guidance application for that academic content to give it a real-world application that's meaningful to kids. Like if they're teaching how to take an average, they would apply that to calculating a GPA. So, okay, so that's coming up in the implementation phase. We'll introduce that in the planning phase, so if you like that, you can drop that into your implementation proposal. And then finally, this last thing, this would be a new cohort of RSC schools, so you would not participate in this. And in that new cohort, we would combine RSC with this introduction workshop for the delivery methods. So, okay, I think that is it. Yep. Let me pause here. I know I tossed out a lot of stuff, and we will be sending out an email about all of this and how to register for that webinar. This webinar here. We'll be sending that out probably early next week. There's a meeting tomorrow that we want to monitor before we send that out. So yeah, so what questions do you have? And then we'll jump into this month's content. Okay, I'm not hearing any questions. Debbie, do you have any typed questions that have come in, or any questions you anticipate schools may have?
I don't see any questions, but I believe we have muted everyone.
Oh, that's right, we did. Let me unmute everyone. We're going to get a little bit of background noise. Thank you. Oh, I can't unmute everyone. I tell you what, type in your questions if you will. Oops, here's a question. Okay, yeah, that's good. Thank you, Julia. Julia Atkins says, no questions yet on my end. Good. Okay, perfect. Okay, type those in if you do, and we'll pause from time to time. Okay, so quick review. RSC beliefs, we've talked about these a million times. We believe that school counseling helps students make sound choices in areas that impact academic success. And again, that's something very unique to our program that I think is going to really help you be able to strengthen your application for the Lilly funding, is that our program is so tied to academic success, both through the guidance and the counseling end. Here's that impact pyramid saying the same thing. And then as you have been designing and now updating your school counseling program, we started out with your achievement goals. Then we looked at what choices do we want students to make. And then we looked at what guidance and counseling program do we need to put in place in order to help students make those choices. Again, this is something that's very unique to RSC. In the process, we started out getting ready. In August, we updated your vision. In September, we updated your goals. and then we updated your priority goals. And so this is where we are right now. Right now, you have 1, 2, or 3 places that are your priority goals. Those are the areas that you're really going to hit hard next year. That means there are also areas that you're really going to hit hard in your implementation funding proposal. So your implementation funding proposal would say, here are the things that based on all of our study of the data and our program and our self-studies and our dreams and based on the input of all of these people in our advisory council, these are the areas we think we need to hit. And before we hit them, though, we want to explain why they're an issue. Why aren't kids making those choices already? And that brings us to this month's step, which is another study. We're looking at your root cause data. What's getting in the way? The activities that you put in your implementation grant will address these root causes. So it may be we look at the guidance data and we say, oh my gosh, no wonder kids aren't making this choice. They don't have the knowledge they need. And so now the activities are going to focus on getting kids that knowledge. It may be that you look at that the counseling data and you say, oh gosh, no wonder that kids aren't making the choices that we want them to make. There's all these social personal issues that are getting in the way. We've got to address those social personal issues. So you're going to focus on counseling activities. Or maybe kids have knowledge and they don't have social personal issues, but you're not giving them the opportunities. You've never taken students on field trips to different types of post-secondary institutions. You've never, in an elementary school, maybe you want to do that with your 5th graders so they start to have this vision. So, as we know we may have some funding, now, even though we never wanted funding to be a blocker, now we're maybe starting to think a little bit more broadly. One other thing that I want to mention, if you haven't done the priority goal step, or even if you have done it, probably need to go back and look at expanding resources. Maybe you only selected 2 or 3 priority goals because you anticipated having absolutely no funding. Now, as you talk with your superintendent and you kind of, tease out how that funding is going to come down to the schools, you're thinking, oh, we're going to have, maybe, $7,000 or $10,000 come into our school for the implementation of all of this. So instead of taking 2 priority goals, maybe we need to be tackling, 5 priority goals. So remember, we expanded resources before we selected your priority goals, and now we have more resources available. So probably a good idea to go back and revisit your priority goals. If you've already submitted these and you change them, please resubmit them so Debbie can look at them again. And then we'll go from that. And again, in the email that we send you next week, all of this will be kind of outlined for you. Okay, so we're looking at root causes today. And then next month we'll say, okay, what activities are we going to put in place, knowing that we've got these root causes and we have this funding, or we hope to have this funding from the implementation grant. What activities do we want to put in place? And this time, instead of looking at individual little activities, we may be looking at big programs like an advisor-advisee program or a community-based guidance program, or introducing an alignment with your guidance standards with the academic standards. So we can really kind of think out of the box here big time because our resources have expanded so much. And then finally, whatever those activities are, then the last step that we'll do at the in second semester is the preparation of those activities. So, okay, that's it. Any questions typed in? Debbie, I'm assuming that you'll jump in when I get to these question slides. So,
no, everybody's good.
Okay, sounds good. So let's talk about root causes. If you haven't participated in SI2 for quite a while, I think you'll be very I'm sorry, I meant to say RSC. If you haven't participated in RSC for quite a while, I think you'll be very pleased with some of the changes that we've made in the online system that will help you with this. First of all, in the past, you have had to print out paper copies of reports and send people these paper packets with all of the root cause data in it. This year that's a little different. So there is a pre-meeting email that you'll send to your council members. They have a homework assignment to do before they get to your meeting. So part one, I'm going to go through the 4 parts of the email. Part 1 is in the email that you'll send everybody, says, as a reminder, our priority goals are to increase the percentage of students who, and then the system will lift out your priority goals that you've typed into the system and drop them into this email. Then our students may not be making these choices because they lack the knowledge, have a personal social issue, or they don't have the opportunity to participate in the guidance activities. To save time at our next meeting, please complete the steps listed in the instructions below. So, okay, so here's the instructions. Step 1 is that they're going to open each of the root cause data reports. Those will be at the bottom of the email. And while these reports do not contain any individual data, they do contain information that some may consider sensitive, and therefore we prefer that the council not share the data with others. There is nothing in here that's protected though by FERPA, so if they do share the information, that's fine. But most schools have told us that they would rather the council have that data. So, okay, as you read each report, we're saying ask themselves, what could be keeping our students from making the choices that we identified as our priority goals? When you find an answer, please write the following on a sticky note. So they're going to write which priority goal they think is being impacted, the report that they got the data from, and what the possible root cause is, so the data itself, and then their initials so we know whose opinion that was. So, and they're writing that on a sticky note. If you remember at our last meeting, we asked you to mail or to send people a little packet of sticky notes for this activity. Okay, so here's some examples. So priority goal is to increase the percent who enroll in AP. They were looking at the guidance report, and they said that, they said the root cause is 50% don't know if the school offers college level courses. So if they don't even know that, how are they going to enroll? And the person who found that data and put it on the sticky note was Sue Reynolds. So same thing, percentage of students who enroll in AP. And student assistance, 50 report says that stress is interfering with learning. Maybe that's keeping them from from feeling confident about enrolling in a rigorous course. Same priority goal, opportunities. Students did not have the opportunity to take an AP course, and that came off of the opportunities report from the counselor survey. So everybody's, has dug through all that data, and they put all their thoughts on these sticky notes. And then at the 4th part of the email says, here are the reports, student guidance needs, student assistance needs, student opportunities, and then the student group reports, which is where we take these things and we disaggregate the data. So we're asking people to go into the disaggregated data, and if there's something that interests them, to open up one or more of those disaggregated reports to see which students, if it's all students or if there's a group of students who don't have the knowledge or have more personal social needs or whatever. So if I'm a Hispanic parent on your council, I might want to see what the Hispanic kids said. If I'm big in being an advocate for low-income families, I might want to see what the low-income kids said, the free and reduced lunch kids said. Okay, so that's the email that's going out. And you just need to set up the email in the online system. I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So when you go into the online system, you'll click this enter button. You get a report that says select which reports to share. The guidance needs report, which is just student knowledge, that is default. Everybody gets that. But then you have a choice about whether or not you want to put the student assistance needs on there for your council to see, and the student opportunities information on there for the students for the council to see. So that's up to you. Select the reports that you want to put on. However, if you're interested in Gold Star and RAMP, you need to do all of them so that your council can really look broadly at your root cause data. Okay, and then you'd hit save and put in who's making that change. Okay, then in the next step, you'll be asked to verify that your advisory council member roster is accurate and that the email addresses are up to date. Then you're just going to tell us that you understand that when you hit this button, that all of your council members with valid email addresses are going to get a message, and I'll show you what that message looks like in a sec, but you can click there and it'll pop up. I understand that the email I'm sending will enable council members to view group data, no individual student data for the reports that I checked above. Okay, so that's how you set it up. Then I wanted to look very quickly at finding stories in that data. So let's say you're doing a root cause analysis and your priority goal is to increase the percentage of 12th graders who apply for merit-based financial aid. In other words, you've looked at your root cause, you've looked at your all of your student choice data, and you've decided that students aren't applying for merit-based financial aid enough. And so that's this choice that you want kids to make. And so now we're going to do an analysis to figure out why kids aren't making those choices. Okay, so here is a segment of the guidance needs report from the student survey. And, we look through those questions, and here's this question that says, do you know how to find and apply for merit-based financial aid? 61% of the students say no, and this is a real schools data, by the way. 61% said no, and 20% said they don't know. So we have 81% of the kids in the building that aren't really sure how to get a hold of need-based financial aid. So it's a knowledge issue. So now that's, and if I were one of your council members, I'd be popping out a sticky note and I'd be writing that information down on the sticky note. So it may also be that the students lack opportunities. This is from the counselor survey report. And as I'm looking through this, I see obtain merit-based financial aid applications. 100%, the counselors have said that 100% of the students have this opportunity, which really tells us a lot. Kids have the opportunity, but they don't know how to do it. So now we know it's not an opportunity issue, it's a knowledge issue, so our activities can focus on the knowledge part. If it were an opportunity issue, then we'd be focusing on counselors providing that opportunity. So, okay. Now let's look at the social personal issues. So this again is coming from the student survey. I look through this and I see, having issues controlling anger. 18% of the kids in this school said that they had, issues with that were interfering with their learning. 3% said that fighting was interfering with their learning. 1% said that drugs and alcohol. But anger, controlling anger, that compared to the rest, that was significantly higher. So, that may be something that you start to think about. Gosh, is the ability to control anger, could that be interfering with our goal? So, yeah, think that out. And if you think it is, then then we're looking at a counseling intervention, a counseling activity. And then this is when we do those drill downs. Let's say, I'm going to go back a couple slides. Let's say that we know that kids don't know about merit-based financial aid, and now we want to know which kids don't know. Is it all kids? Is it just females? Is it just Hispanic? Is it just free and reduced lunch kids? Is it kids who participate in Indiana's 21st Century Scholar Program? Is it our special ed kids? Is it kids whose parents have never been to college? Is it A's and B's students or D's and F students? So we can start to narrow down this so that we can fine-tune the activities. And I tell you, in your implementation grant proposal, having this data to be able to target with data students that aren't don't have knowledge or that aren't making choices that they need to make, I think that's really going to make your application strong. So, okay. So this is just an example of drill down data. This is, again, I'm looking at the ability, knowing where to find for merit-based financial aid. I look at my ninth graders, I see only 4% of ninth graders do, and maybe thinking, that's okay because ninth graders aren't doing that at that point. They're not applying for merit-based financial aid. Although in my school, I wanted my freshmen to know that because I wanted them to understand how important their GPA was in ninth grade. But you may decide, it's not so important there. You may decide it's really important in 12th grade when they're actually doing it, but only 50% of the 12th graders are. So again, you're kind of looking at this data, and it causes you to think about, when do kids need to know this? And again, for me, it's in 8th grade actually, so that kids start high school understanding how important that GPA is if they're planning on applying for merit-based financial aid. So, okay. And again, as you're thinking through with your Lilly grant how to spend those funds, this data will help you be thinking about, is it okay that we just do this for 12th graders, or do we need to do it for, for younger kids? On your free and reduced lunch status drill down, you can see that 18% of the free and reduced lunch kids say they know how to get merit-based financial aid. 21% of the paid lunch. So a little bit of a discrepancy here, but not a lot. And then when I look at grade levels, if I look at the percentage of students who get A's and B's versus the percentage of students who don't get A's and B's, I can see that the more, for the most part, the higher grades I get, the more I know about financial aid, merit-based financial aid. So I may be thinking, maybe I want to do an activity to really target the kids who get D's and F's and C's and D's, and help them know that there's money for you to support post-secondary education. Here's why secondary education is important, and and really target those kids in your messages and your activities. So again, I'm hoping that you're seeing how this data helps you identify where you need to go with your activities. It's the root cause data. It tells you where the issues are so that you know how to pinpoint those activities. Again, this is something in RSC that we've never seen in other initiatives. I think this is very unique nationally to RSC, and should make, I hope, your application for any grant funding very strong. So, okay, let's look through the meeting walkthrough. Actually, I'm going to get online real quickly first, and I see we have 10 minutes, so I'm going to kind of fly through this. Oops, here we go. Okay, so I am, let me just scroll back up to top so you can see where I am. I'm in the, oops, not where I wanted to be. I'm going to click on the Processes tab, and I'm in the Processes page now. I'm going to scroll down to November, and here I am. In November, we're watching the webinar, in participating in the webinar, watching the webcast. Here is that advisory council. Here's that advisory council email setup. So I'm just going to click on that, and you'll see here's the pages that we covered in the PowerPoint. So that's what it looks like. And then if I click this message, here the message pops up. So this is what that email is going to look like. I know, I guess that you'd want to see it before you actually send it out to people. So here's what it looks like, and you'll see that we've dropped in your priority goals into that email. And then also at the bottom of that email, these links will go directly to your school's data. Notice that there's a warning up here. You may not copy and paste the text of this message into an email that you send. If you do that, these links won't work. They won't take you to your school's data. So you have to send the email out through our system. So, okay. Okay, so that's setting it up. Conduct the advisory council meeting. Enter your root causes. It's very easy. You just click this. You can see I have one root cause already. I'm sorry, I have my priority goals in here. I don't have any root causes in yet. I just click this root cause, and I'm going to type in whatever my root cause is, and then that will be in there. So don't forget to save. So I'm just going to go ahead and close that one out without saving. Okay, so each of your priority goals will appear here, and you just type in your root causes. Very simple. Okay, so then we're going to enter your meeting 4 minutes, review the rubric items. Let's look at those real quickly. So root causes, one or more root causes exist for each priority goal. The type is indicated for each root cause. I forgot to show you that, but is this a guidance root cause or a counseling root cause or an opportunity root cause? And then the typical rubric items for your minutes. Okay, so now let's look at the presentation. Oops. There we go. So very quickly, okay, so we're talking about the day's agenda, which is to introduce root causes, to analyze, spend time analyzing the root causes, and then looking ahead. Okay. So that's the review. And in this slide, we're reminding people that out of their discussions come products. And we have 4 of the 6 products right now: the vision statement, goals, resource expansion plan, which again, this is something that if you're planning on applying for that Lilly funding, that can be part of your resource expansion plan, is to apply for that funding. And then again, looking at those priority goals again, now that you have additional funding. Looking at your root causes, and then activities. Okay, so we're going over an introduction to root causes. Today's question you're telling your council is, why aren't students making sound choices for each of our priority goals? So the big question there is why. And then you're noting that once we know what the whys are, what the root causes are, then we'll be able to address those things with our activities. So on this slide, you've typed in your root causes. So who is this a root cause for? I'm sorry, you typed in your priority goals. Who is this a priority goal for? What is the priority goal? What's your baseline data? And what's your target data? As an alternative to this slide, you could pass out a copy of your priority goals report that you print from the system. So you're telling your council, today we're going to do these things. We're going to check, do our students have the knowledge they need to make sound decisions? Do they have personal or social issues? Do they have opportunities to participate in activities that support high achievement? And then we're giving them a kind of a heads up on what that data looks like. So here's just a kind of a sample of what the guidance needs report looked like, the counselor survey report, the student assistance reports. So, and again, they've seen those reports if they did their homework before they came in, so that's kind of review. So today we're doing a new root cause analysis. We're using a Delphi consensus building model, and there's 3 steps. First, we're going to look at the data individually. Then we're going to review it in small groups and talk about it in small groups and then in large groups. And we'll come to consensus both in the small group and then in the large group. So the first step was the individual data analysis, and you're telling your council, good news, we've already done that. That's what you did for homework before you got here. And you've brought with you today your sticky notes that talk about what you think the root causes are for our priority goals. Just one other thing, occasionally we have schools that don't want to do homework, and they'll actually have a separate meeting and do this as a group. So this does not have to be a homework assignment. It could be a separate meeting where you bring people in and have them open up that data, send out the email, have them open up the data while they're there with you and create those sticky notes. Okay, but for most of you, that'll be a pre-meeting task. Okay, so small group discussion. You have broken your council into small groups. You've given each small group a poster that looks like this, and they have one poster for each priority goal. So if you have 3 priority goals, each small group gets 3 posters. On the posters, you have already written one of the priority goals, so increase the percentage of students who choose to enroll in AP. And then on this poster, there's guidance things that are getting in the way, student assistance things that are getting in the way, and opportunities that are getting in the way. So what you're asking your councils, your small groups to do, and by small groups we're talking maybe 3 or 4, no, 5 maybe. I usually like to work with groups of 4. To put their sticky notes up on the poster, and everybody goes up and put their sticky notes on. That's kind of energizing because you start to see all these thoughts go up. It's pretty cool. And then they're going to discuss each of those as a they're going to discuss each of those areas and come up with 1 to 3 root causes for each priority goals. Then you're warning people, please don't time talking about the following. Don't talk yet about why the root causes exist or how you're going to fix it. And then we're saying that if an activity does pop into your head, we want you to park it on this parking lot. So this is a poster you put on the wall, and if someone says, our students we don't offer AP classes, and someone says, at this other school they do this and it's really, really cool, they should stop the discussion there, come over to the parking lot. It's a big poster you put on the wall, and park it. We'll bring that poster into your next discussion. Okay, then we're looking at large group consensus. So you're having each small group do a quick report. They're sharing 1 root cause at a time. So you're saying to them, okay, let's talk about our priority goal of having kids enroll in AP. And what are some of your root causes? And then you'll turn to one group and say, what's one root cause that you came up with? And they say. And then you go to turn to the next small group. What's another root cause? And one at a time, you're, a lot of activity and motion. You're going from group to group to group, and they're sharing their root causes for that specific priority goal. When you've exhausted that one, then you'll do another one, but we're doing 1 priority goal at a time. So you're going to share they're going to share 1 concern at a time. They want to make it into 1 sentence. They're not going to go into a big paragraph, and it should not include activities that could address the root cause. So 1 sentence. We're not going to talk about rationale or anything else. And they're going to start out. I like to say the prompt over and over again to keep people focused so they don't ramble. We believe 1 root cause for this priority goal might be that, and then they just complete that sentence. So, okay. Then we're telling folks that for each priority goal, they have a piece of paper that looks like this. So again, if you have 3 priority goals, they have 3 pieces of paper. So the first priority goal is to increase the percentage of kids who choose to enroll in AP. And then as each root cause comes up, people are going to write it down at their seats. So each individual person has one of these sheets for each priority goal. They're going to write down, we don't offer AP. Students are bringing a lot of stress to school, which interferes with their ability to learn at a high level. Students don't have funding to pay for the AP test and don't know how to get it. Whatever it is that people are bringing up, each person is writing this down on their individual sheet. Then when that's all finished, you're asking people to check a third of these that they think are the most getting in the way. And one other tip here is that before we go on, if this is a continuing priority goal, we want to add to the list before they do their checks the root causes that you've already identified. Okay, then we're going to have people check a third of the things that they think are really important to address. And then at the same time that everybody was reporting out, one of your steering team members was working on a poster, so that was blank before you started this except for the priority goal. So the first possible root cause comes up, everybody at their seats is writing it down here, and the steering team member is writing it up on the Instagraph. So we capture all the possible root causes, And then we're asking people to look at the third of the things that they checked on their individual sheet and to come up and start putting their sticky dots on, building a bar graph as they go. So you kind of, I think we've done that before, you kind of understand how that works. Okay, and then that helps narrow down your discussion about root causes. So at that point we can say, you know, we've got 2 here that got so many more votes. Could we agree that one of the root causes is the kids don't know that the school even offers AP classes, and the other one is that students don't know what the requirement is for the honors diploma. So, and then can we agree to leave out these that only got 1 vote, and how do you feel about these 2? So it just makes the discussion go quickly, and you can reach consensus, you know, really fast. So consensus is, can we live with these root causes of the ones that our counseling program will address, and can we publicly support these root causes as the ones that we'll address? So can we live with them, and can we publicly support them? Then we're telling the council, just to, again, I want to get back to the big picture. Thank you so much. At meeting 5, we'll start talking now about what to do about these root causes. And, you know, if you're talking with them about the Lilly funding opportunity, you can say, you know, and these activities that we identify will end up being the content of our grant proposal to Lilly. And if they're funded, then we'll have funding to implement them over the next several years. So, so we're just, you know, giving people a heads up of how these root causes are going to be used. Okay, and then that's it. And then that's it, I believe, also for the webinar. Let me see if there's anything else that we needed to cover. We've talked about this month's task. We talked about that. We did the online system. Okay, one other thing is, and this is really important, as your council is talking, and especially if they know that there's now the potential of funding to implement, to address your root causes, you may have an inclination to come up with a ton of root causes. So while we do have more funding, be thinking about, is that funding going to be able to purchase time after the grant period? And if not, then again, we really think that you need to think realistically about, you know, what root causes can we address with the time that we have and the funding that we have. We don't want to overextend yourself here. And again, since there, you know, is some significant funding here, we want to carefully think about using that funding in a way that doesn't take you out of your ability to deliver what you put into that implementation grant. So we always want to be thinking, you know, with this funding and the way we can use it, are we going to be able to implement well all of these activities? You know, we've always had you come back with follow-up data to see if the activities got implemented well in RSC, but with a, you know, a grant proposal, you know, down the road, I'm sure you're going to be asked to show and probably show with data that your activities made an impact. So we really want to make sure here that you're not overextending yourself. So, okay, I think that is it. We'll see, Debbie, if there are any questions. And if you do have questions, please feel free to contact Debbie, you know, after today. We will be sending out an email in the next few days to kind of summarize the support that we're going to be providing for our current RSC schools as you develop your planning grant and your implementation grant. So, Debbie, are we seeing any questions?
I do not see any questions, but I want to thank everybody for their hard work, because I've been in touch with most of our people recently. And so thanks for all you're doing, and I look forward to continue working with you the rest of the year. Okay,
that sounds good. Good. The other thing, just before we close, that I think is interesting with this Lilly initiative, our organization started from a Lilly grant, and it was also a grant back 20 years ago, but it was also a grant that's actually very similar to this grant. It was for a very small number of schools, but it partnered us with business leaders to teach a planning process to us, and we were able to learn how business people use data to plan, and I developed that into a planning process that we could teach to schools to help them implement their school counseling program. So yeah, so it's all kind of nice that this is, come back. Some of you, if you've been in school counseling a long time, that was the Indiana School Counseling and Guidance Leadership Project. There were just 6 schools that were invited to participate in that, so I'm just tickled that it's all schools in the state get to do the planning part now. So that's really cool. But just like this initiative, a big focus of that initiative was involving the community and others in delivering the guidance curriculum and having that coordinate with the school counseling standards, the guidance standards. So yeah, so I just think it's really cool that we'll be able to kind of mesh all this together. So okay, so thanks everybody, and as we learn more and work through this, we will definitely keep you posted. And we'll look for an email from us in the next few days to kind of explain exactly what we're going to do and how to engage in it. So, okay, that sounds great. Thanks everyone, and we'll talk to you later.